All right. Thank you. So, get out your bell ringers. I do have a note on this bell ringer because we were definitely going to talk about this today. And I know it's a controversial issue, and so I definitely want to talk about this and hit this. So, Monday, we don't have school.
Yes.
Why don't we have school on Monday? We don't call it that anymore. What do we call it now?
Indigenous Day.
Really? Indigenous Peoples Day. Yes, because of this issue. Now, a lot of people don't know the true history of Christopher Columbus because it's not taught this way in schools. And actually, technically, we're still not supposed to talk about it. Texas has passed a law saying you have to teach history how it's written in the history books, and you can't talk about true stories because you're teaching to your own agenda if you talk about true stories and not what's written down in our history books. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm risking it all. So let's talk about Christopher Columbus. Tell me the true story. Someone raise your hand. What's the real story?
Well, overall, he was not a good guy
No.
at all.
What did he do, Olivia?
He sexually assaulted a lot of women.
Yes.
Indigenous women.
He came to America and said that he had founded this place.
Yeah. He came to America, said he founded this place. They raped people. What else did they do? Killed people.
Stole them too.
And stole people, took them back to their own country as slaves, enslaved people here in the Americas. And we have a holiday where we celebrate this man. That's why I put X on. Somebody did that this morning. They were kind of X on, I'm sure, whatever. We celebrate this man and the discovering of something that was already here, that was already established, that already had people living here. That he didn't find in the first place. That's going into someone's house and being like, I like this house, it's mine now.
No.
Get out, pack your stuff. And we would be like, no. And they tried to say no, but when you have guns versus arrows, yeah, it was unfair. And they also brought diseases over that Native Americans did not have and were not able to protect themselves against. So their immune systems were compromised and they died. And things like this still happen a lot. And this is something I always like to talk about. We're going to get into it a lot this year. Things like this still happen. There are still places where people are taken over by new rulers and they kill people, slaughter them, and do those unspeakable things to them. There are still people that claim to be great leaders that kill groups of people. There's still genocide. We end up always talking about Hitler when we talk about this topic because Hitler was a very good speaker. And that's why I put the note on your papers that says, let's talk about how bad people will say wise things. Bad people usually are the best talkers. They know how to say things and get a following. And people are always like we look at history and we're like, how did these people get into power? How did people want to follow them? Well, they didn't start out all bad. Their ideas sounded really good. They were really good public speakers. Hitler was a great public speaker and really good at reading people. He was really good at making you feel like you were his best friend. And when he met world leaders, they agreed with a lot of his ideals because he would pick things to talk about that he knew that they were interested in and they also agreed with. He secretly on the back end was figuring out, okay, here's my crazy, here's what I want to do. Let me find the people who also agree with this topic. I don't know how that comes up, like, do you hate Jews? Yeah, I hate Jews. Like, I don't know how that happens. But they end up having that conversation, and he gets enough of a following that so many people are following him, and he's voted into power that they can't say no anymore because there's enough people with guns and weapons that you can no longer fight against them. That's how they're able to take millions of people to concentration camps and kill them in gas chambers. But that didn't just happen in the Holocaust. These things are still happening now. There are still camps in places in the world where they're doing this to people, or even just calling them work camps and they're working there, but they're deplorable conditions and they're stuck there. They have nowhere else to go. This still happens all the time. This happened in the United States. This happened during World War II. After Pearl Harbor was bombed, we took Japanese people and put them in camps and said, hey, we don't trust you because our lands were just bombed. They were citizens of the United States. And we put them in camps. Not good conditions. And a lot of people don't want to talk about that, and they don't want us talking about it, but this is our history. If we don't know about it, how can we prevent it from happening? If you forget your history, you're gonna repeat your history. So every year I get asked, like, why do you even keep this quote if it's such like a harsh topic? Because we need to talk about it, and we need to know, like, bad people say wise things, because we need to prepare ourselves. You guys are getting ready to be of a voting age, and you're getting ready to be the people making the decisions in this country. And you need to know to watch out for people who can say things that sound really good but are bad people. So that's why I leave it every year, and we talk about it, and I give options. Because I'm not gonna make you write about, good one, make you write about the Christopher Columbus quote, because, Columbus quote, because if that's very triggering, and to know, like, this is the man who said it, and so if you don't want to write about it, there is a second option. Your second option is you can write about how bad people do say wise things sometimes. You can write about that instead. If you do want to write about the Christopher Columbus quote, he said, by prevailing over all obstacles and distractions, one may unfailingly arrive at his chosen goal or destination. Basically, he says you have to make mistakes and work hard to get to your goals. Now, if I gave you this quote without his name attached, that would be pretty unfair. But if I did, and somebody actually said we should make a game of this, and I was like, that would be a fun game. To give you quotes where you don't have the names, and we talk about them and decide our opinion on them, and then I give you the names. Serious? Hi, you guys can just sit over there and watch, okay? I thought that would be a fun game, like just to see. Like, pick quotes from all different kinds of people, and then we talk about them, and then I reveal the names. So I'm gonna like put that together, because I was like, that would be a really like interesting thing to see, like who actually said these things, because you'll be surprised at what people will say that sound good and they're like not good people, or vice versa. So there's like some good like people we really like that say some stupid things because they're not thinking when they're talking, and then they have to like take it back, like I didn't mean it like that, and they have to explain themselves. So I'll put that together, but I keep this every year so that we have this to talk about, because we shouldn't not talk about it. And every year we have Columbus Day, and thankfully we've changed the name, but on our school calendar it still says Columbus Day, because they probably honestly printed those before they changed it and they didn't want to reprint. A lot of money goes into those calendars, so hopefully next year it says something different. Like on one of the calendars I bought, planners I bought from Walmart this year, it says Indigenous Peoples Day, it does not say Columbus Day. So it is being changed. And this is triggering, and the reason I had the note on there was so that you would know we are going to talk about this, because I've had years where I didn't have the note on there, and I hand it out and people are like, big mad, which I totally understand. This is not a good person. And if that's your background, that could be very triggering, especially like if I put a quote from Hitler up there, I would expect someone who's Jewish to be mad, like say like, oh, wise words, like I hate this man. So that's why I make sure we talk about it every year, and we know that not all good people say good things, and not all bad people say bad things. We talked about serial killers. Somebody mentioned a serial killer last period. They're like, yeah, this serial killer said like all these things and people liked him. Yeah, a lot of serial killers, people really liked them. They had no idea, because they know how to manipulate people and trick people and make them think like, I'm a really good person. Like Ted Bundy, a lot of people liked him. He was an attractive man, like nice guy, had a wife, she had a daughter, like they had a family. A lot of serial killers have families and people that they love and care about, claim to love and care about. I don't know, they're a little crazy. And then when they find out like this is you the whole time, you can, if you're just going out there to be on your phone, though that's gonna really disappoint me. But they end up finding out like you were a serial killer. It's like, that just blows people's minds. You always watch like those documentaries where they're like, nobody knew, and everyone's like, how did you not know? Because they're really manipulative, and they make you think like, I'm a really good person. So I mean, that's what Hitler did. That's what a lot of people did. Back in Columbus's day, I mean, they were conquerors of lands, and that was technically legal somehow, some way, because not all lands have been discovered. So in his mind, he probably thought he wasn't doing anything wrong, but now like we know that's not okay, and we need to talk about it so we don't do things like that, because these things do still happen and people don't want to talk about it. They don't want you to know about it. Check history books. There's a lot of stuff in our history that's not there. So can you guys think of anybody else that I didn't mention that is like bad person? Ready? But they say wise things. Yeah.
R. Kelly.
R. Kelly. Yes.
Oh my god.
Great music. Bad person. There's a lot of musicians that are bad people, but
Michael Jackson.
What's that one president that's on the dollar bill? And he's
Donald Trump. Washington?
No.
No.
Is it the $20 bill?
Andrew Jackson.
Yes, Andrew Jackson.
Oh, yeah, good job. Yeah. A lot of the founding fathers. Yeah, founding fathers. Yeah.
You want to?
Do you? What are you gonna say? Okay. Yeah, a lot of that history they want to hide that, like, oh, we founded America and these are the things we believe in. That's why a lot of people don't stand for the pledge written during founding fathers' times. Pilgrims came over, took over the lands, and said, we came over here for religious freedom. And then they persecuted and killed people who didn't believe in their religion. Hypocrites, yeah, exactly. And they didn't see it as wrong. They did not. For some crazy reason. They did not see it as wrong.
I feel like a lot of them knew it was wrong,
Yeah.
but they just kept going. Like,
They kept going.
Alexander Hamilton, I remember reading about
Yeah.
him that he did not like slavery,
Mhm.
but he never actively protested against it because he knew it would do nothing for his political career.
And Abraham Lincoln
Did not
did
care.
not actually care about slavery, and he's the one who passed the law. But he did it because he wanted votes. And he could get more votes going against slavery than he could going for it. He didn't really care either way. The Civil War, when that happened, it really wasn't all about slavery like we've learned. There was a lot of other issues that was thrown in there. It became a main issue when it came to re-election for Lincoln. So there's a lot of our history that we've been taught that isn't 100% accurate. Because who writes the history books?
The winners.
The old white men.
Who are
They
the
write the
winners?
history books, yeah. They're the winners. They're the ones who, they're in control. If we had lost the American Revolution and the British had taken control, things probably would have been different. If we had lost a bunch of other wars, things like that, things would have been different. So, do your own research. Yes, we get taught things in school, but the books, gotta remember who they're written by. Just like when we talked about whether Steve was reliable or unreliable, you gotta look at who's writing it. Who's the one telling the story? You gotta know. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Marco Polo because he's like, I did all these travels,
Spit in the water. Yeah.
I did all this travels and stuff like that, and he did.
Mhm.
You know, on the point of rewriting history, I found out that there was this in the South, you know how like a whole bunch of Southern people with the Confederate flag having a part of history, that there was this group of women that like they had this whole plan of rewriting how the Civil War ended up in the South, and as you can clearly see, they succeeded. And I thought it was really cool. Because I was like, there was this group of women that set out a task to rewrite history, and they succeeded.
Yep.
That they
There's
wanted it
so much.
that they wanted to erase that it was all about slavery, that the South was very racist, and being a part of have that Confederate flag flying high is supposed to be super patriotic and something.
Yeah. Exactly. So you pick, either write about this quote or write about bad people say wise things. I'm gonna pass out today's assignment while you're finishing up your bell ringer, and I'll talk about that. We did find out that Steve was found innocent. Do you think he was innocent?
Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe.
Do you think he was in the store?
Well, they said that
I
guilty
read
was just him.
He pretty much said he was.
He admitted it in the
Yeah.
journal.
In his journal, yeah. Not on the stand, but in his journal, he admitted being there. But not on that day. But he says several times, like, what did I do wrong? I went in a store, I walked out. Is that a crime?
Yeah.
Well, if you're part of a robbery. Now, do I think Steve should have got 25 years to life for being a lookout?
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, I don't think so. He didn't mean for that something to go wrong. Should he have been involved in it? No, but 25 years to life when you're 16. But he needed some consequence.
Would that even happen? Some people
I think
say-
he got scared enough though. Did anybody catch the part where it mentions when he goes to court that last day that his knuckles were beat up?
Oh, yeah.
So he had gotten in a fight.
Wait, it's the jury.
So he definitely still went through a hard time in jail. Yeah.
Something like that happened or something like that.
Well, I don't know. They said he was in a detention center, but then they mentioned he was with these old people. So I don't know.
No, just because he's a part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's not.
Technically, yes. If you, so like, let's say you guys and your friends decided to go rob somebody and somebody died, you would be held responsible. Because you were. Yes. And so, yeah, we're actually gonna watch a documentary where one of the kids in jail, well, in prison, was involved in a crime like that, where they went to rob a house and the guy got shot by the homeless one, but he got charged with murder.
As you know, like there's this video of she was in jail, she because of getting by social media.
Yeah. So we're gonna watch, I think it's next week we're watching that. So, let's talk about the lawyer. So when he is found innocent, his lawyer, is, you know, you think she would be excited. She's his lawyer. He goes to hug her, and she picks up her stuff, and she walks away. She doesn't smile at him, high five him, nothing. You could kind of tell throughout the book her feelings towards Steve. I caught a few times, like she would say things or imply things, and you guys were like, he likes me. Like, what is her problem? So, what I did was, well, let's wait for instructions real quick. Just real quick. So, I picked 4 quotes. They're not from the end, they're from throughout the book, from the lawyer. What I want you to do with these quotes is you're gonna write down how you think she was feeling about Steve or what she was thinking about Steve when these quotes happened. So I did write down the page numbers in case you want to go back and kind of like look at that whole page or that whole section. So the first one says, O'Brien says, oh, they're talking about how Steve is scared. And she says, good, you should be. Anyway, just remember what we talked about. Yeah. So when she says that, what do you think she's thinking or feeling about Steve? You're guilty. Yeah. Cool, right there. 2 says, this is during one of his journal entries. This is when he writes about how he saw the pictures of the body. And he says, Miss O'Brien looked at me. I didn't see her looking at me, but I knew she was. She wanted to know who I was. Who was Steve Harmon? 3 says, oh, this was the one that when they were in court and he put his head down and he was scribbling monster all over the page. She says, if you give up, they'll give up on you. And then angrily, get your head up. So what is she thinking or feeling then? And then the last one, we did talk about when we decided if Steve was reliable or unreliable. They're having a conversation. Steve says, I'm not guilty, I said to her. You should have said I didn't do it. She said, yeah. So we talked about that because he kept saying, I'm not guilty. And until that point, he hadn't said I didn't do it. Then she says, you should say I didn't do it. And he's like, I didn't do it. Like just repeating her. But so for each of these 1 through 4, you're just gonna write like 1 sentence telling me what you think she's feeling or what her opinion about Steve is. And then number 5, I want you to write kind of like a little summary of how she's feeling about Steve. What is her internal conflict is what I want you to write about. Think about that. She's his lawyer, but she feels a certain way. So what's this struggle she's dealing with and how she should be acting and how she actually is acting? So you guys can work together, work with your people, work with your group, talk about these. Do 1 through 4, write about the quotes, and then 5 is just a summary of the lawyer. Questions? Yeah. Question? Yes. I did put the page numbers in case you need to go back and look. You want to kind of see what they were talking about exactly. So this should be pretty quick, and that's all you guys have for today.